Hello, it's Martin from Wisely Automotive. In this video with a Hyundai IONIQ 5, specifically the Namsan Edition. We had a couple of these in stock, but many people don't realize that they actually exist because for the longest time Ultimate used to be the highest trim level in the Hyundai lineup, at least here in Europe. But the Namsan actually builds on top of that, so that is the new top level in the lineup. So I thought I would show you around so you can see, if you're in the market for one, how it stacks up against the Ultimate, what additional features you get, and at the end of the day whether they are worth the extra money. Needless to say, it already includes all the features of the Ultimate trim, so notably on the outside these lovely 20-inch diamond cut alloy wheels, the power operated tailgate, and if we look into the cockpit, that's where most of the gadgets are. You've got the absolutely massive augmented reality heads-up display, the sliding central console, the leather upholstery which is perforated so the front seats are ventilated and heated as well, heated steering wheel, etc. But I'm sure the eagle-eyed viewers have already noticed a couple of things which we normally don't get on IONIQ 5s here in Europe, and that's the digital wing mirrors and the full glass roof. The panoramic roof is particularly nice in our opinion because the IONIQ 5 is quite a high-end vehicle, but up until now you couldn't get it with a sunroof option at all. And as you can see, it's very neatly integrated because as the windscreen continues upwards, there are these additional glass inserts which make it look like the roof is a single piece of glass stretching all the way back to the rear spoiler. It really brightens up the cabin, especially for the rear passengers, but as you can see, it doesn't really eat into headspace at all, so there's still plenty of room even for tall adults. In case you want less sunlight instead, the Namsan gets these roll-up shades for the rear windows, especially useful if you have a baby in the back. And the glass roof isn't just for show, because if you want to close it, you have an electronically controlled shade which splits in half and meets here elegantly in the middle. Under the bonnet it's standard stuff for IONIQ 5s. If you go for the rear-wheel drive version like this is, you get a slightly bigger frunk than with the all-wheel drive. However, it's important to mention that all of these Namsans automatically come with the big 77 kWh battery, and they are also fitted with heat pumps as part of the standard equipment. The batteries and the heating systems are actually where a lot of confusion happens with these IONIQ 5s, so let me try to explain it to you slowly one by one. Firstly, let's disregard the launch edition because it was a little bit different to all the other versions and it was only made in low numbers. So if you wanted to go for a big battery IONIQ 5 back in the day, just after it launched, you would get a 72.5 kWh gross capacity unit. It by default came with no battery heater and no heat pump. That was only available as part of an optional eco package only on the Ultimate trim levels. So, just to be clear, even if you went for the Ultimate, you still had to pay extra for the eco package if you wanted the better winter performance. Most people in the UK probably went for the eco package because of the heat pump to squeeze out a bit more range in the winter, but realistically, we think it's the high voltage battery heater which is more important, because especially if you travel abroad where winters are not as mild as here in England, you would sometimes struggle to get the advertised peak charging rates of the IONIQ 5, and it's a shame because it's one of the biggest selling points of being able to recharge to 80% in just 18 minutes. All of that is sorted with this refreshed tech-lifted version which brings the 77 kWh battery. Yes, it's only a slight boost in kilowatt hours, but it automatically includes the high voltage battery heater. However, the heat pump is still an optional extra for some of the trim levels, but it's included on this Namsan. And so is the tech package, which is otherwise an optional package on the Ultimate. For completeness, just so you know, the tech package includes these automatically pop-out door handles, so they electronically actuate to move out of the body, otherwise you need to pry them open like on a Tesla Model 3. You've got the electric seat memory for the driver. You get the smart parking assistant, and as you can see on the key fob you can remotely summon the vehicle forwards and backwards, and it can even park into parking bays. I will show you that later in the video because it's quite cool. But most importantly, on the topic of seats, you get the relaxation seats. So all you need to do is double press this button and the seat will slide back, the backrest will recline, and as you can see in the front you've got a little footrest which extends to support your calves. I do have to be honest, I think it's a little bit gimmicky, but my colleague thinks it's the best feature ever made. And to be fair, if you like to travel long distances and you don't like to spend money at motorway services, at least you can snooze comfortably while you are charging. While I was talking to you, the sun disappeared and in fact it started raining, which will give us a perfect opportunity to test out these camera mirrors in slightly more challenging conditions. Before I jump in, let me actually show you, they do still hinge here just like a regular wing mirror. So if you lock the vehicle, as you can see, the door handles pop in and the mirrors fold in as well. I'm pretty sure Hyundai has used this design just so they can reuse the bits which would normally house the mirrors, and they just slap a camera at the end instead of the actual wing mirror assembly. From the inside, if you look closely, you can actually tell that the camera is slightly recessed within the housing itself, and I'm sure there's also some oleophobic coating on the lens, all to help with performance in the rain, because if you look at this screen you can see that there are no raindrops visible in the image, and the same thing applies for the passenger side. Speaking of the screens, this is the kind of view I get as a driver, and as you can hopefully see, the screens are very well positioned. They are tilted towards me both on the off side and the near side, and because they are on top of the door card, they are basically where you would look for a normal wing mirror. Much better in our eyes than something like the Audi e-tron, where they are much further down within the door card. You still get these old school mirror controls, and that's because Hyundai gives you a little bit of flexibility with the image, so you can adjust it to suit your personal preference. Enough talking, let me actually show you how it looks in practice. Well, at least attempt to show you, because please appreciate, I'm trying to show you a digital image showed on a screen recorded by another camera, so it will obviously not look the best. I will wear a camera on my head, so hopefully you get the same field of view as I have now. So I'm popping this into drive, wipers on, checking my mirror to make sure that I can pull away safely, and that is indeed the case. And I will be turning right. Again, I will need to check that everything is clear, and I'm going right. I don't know whether this comes across, I know it's always very difficult to show, but I also have the heads-up display active, which shows me lots of detail right there, so I can have the navigation on silent, yet I still know where I need to turn. And you see, as I check my mirrors periodically, the image is very clear, and in fact I would say this is one of the benefits of having digital mirrors, because even though the windows are obviously covered with water, and if you were looking at a mirror outside, that image would be impacted here, I can see it all perfectly clearly because of the very clever design of the hardware, and simply because the screen is actually inside, not getting rained on. Here we have a width restriction, so camera on, and let's try to make sure that I don't scuff the alloys. I mean, this is tight, but got through. Dead basket camera mirrors as well. It's definitely the way forward. I will try to battle through the traffic. It's a little bit chaotic out of Greenwich here. And you can hopefully see that in addition to the actual mirror screen, you still get the same blind spot assist as on cars with a 360 camera. Also note that as I've got cars passing me on the side, I get the little warning message in the camera mirror and also in the heads-up display to show me that there is a vehicle in the blind spot. But one of the benefits of these camera mirrors is that the blind spots really are reduced. It's a quite wide angle image, so together with the blind spot assist you really are fully aware of what's happening around you. I'm about to join the A2, which can be a little bit stressful because obviously I've got these relatively short slip roads, but the camera gives me a good view. I've got the blind spot assist, and to aid with judging distance, I've got these additional lines here which also show me vehicle lengths. And as you heard, because I had the indicator still on, the blind spot monitoring sounded an audible alert on top of the visual waves in the heads-up display, the instrument cluster and set camera feed. Yeah, not quite sure what else to show you because it does the job well. I am satisfied. And on the other end of the spectrum, at night time or even in super bright conditions, the cameras have a very good dynamic range and they never get blinded. and you never get blinded. So even if there's someone driving with high beams on behind you, obviously the camera compensates for the exposure. Yes, the image does get a little bit more grainy during the night, but it's still perfectly visible. And I would say, in fact, for those of you who struggle with driving at night, I think it's a bit easier to focus on these screens than on the mirrors. I will be honest, the one area which takes a little bit of getting used to is parking, because obviously the perspective is a little bit different. I will try to use this narrow parking space in between these two vehicles as an example. So I pull up as I would as normal, put the vehicle into reverse, and yeah, it's sometimes a little bit difficult to judge how far back my IONIQ goes. A little trick is that you can flick the switch for adjusting the mirrors to either left or right position, and then the cameras go into kind of a zoomed out view, and they give you guidance lines within the mirrors themselves, which helps. But I'm afraid realistically what you need to learn to do is to rely on the reversing camera rather than the actual mirrors. Yes, I know if you are old school that will take a little bit of getting used to, but that is the best solution, I'm afraid. But as you can see, even with the water on the lens, it's no big deal. And into this tight parking space, I can use the guidance lines to help me a little bit. And there we go, nicely all the way up to the bollard. Of course, alternatively, you can use the automated parking, and let's see whether we find a suitable spot for that. You just have to press and hold the camera symbol, and then the car goes into the search function where it looks for parking spaces which are suitable. Now, I've actually never used this in the rain, so I'm interested to see how it works, because it uses the actual cameras to detect the parking spaces. Let's try going here. Perfect, and it found a space on the left, so that remote parking, it turns the indicator on its own. I will push the vehicle into park. Now it's time to get out. This is the slightly nerve-wracking part. So you just press this button and it's turning the steering wheel on its own, and it should position itself correctly. Stops on its own. I'm just keeping the button pressed. It's almost like a dead man's switch to make sure it doesn't run someone over. It will move forward. Adjust. Let's see whether I will get beeped at. Let's see what will it do. It will adjust one more time. I mean, it is obviously cautious, but that's good. And that's it. Happy, turned itself off. You can just lock the vehicle and walk away like magic. But I'm not going to lie, my heart rate is absolutely through the roof. But we haven't had them crash into anything so far, and we've tried it on many IONIQ 5s on many occasions. It's just a little bit slow. So if the car park is busy, you will definitely be looked at. But people love the feature. I had 3 people stop by admiring what it was doing on its own. If you don't trust computers that much, you can always remotely start the vehicle, which, as you can see, will bring the dash to life. So in a situation like this where you are parked very close to the vehicle next to you, you can then use the directional buttons to just summon the vehicle straight in and out of a parking space. So it will just slowly start creeping forwards, and once you are sure that you have enough clearance to get into the driver's seat, that's it, let go, unlock, and you can jump right in. I hope I covered everything you wanted to know. There's always lots to discuss with these Hyundai and Kia products in terms of technology because they're absolutely loaded with kit, but I hope I got the basics out of the way. Now that I'm in the showroom, it's time for some buying advice if you made it this far into the video. Look, it's only up to you to decide what you value the most in a particular vehicle and how much you value all of this technology. But from our perspective as a used EV retailer, I will be honest, we basically scaled back buying of the Ultimates and we are now much more focused on these Namsans because we always used to get into the same scenario with the Ultimates where people would be very keen to have the tech package for whatever reason, be it the relaxation seats, the remote smart parking, or some people definitely want to have the heat pump. Yet it's very difficult to find examples with both of those options ticked. So that's where we really just go in with the Namsans because they have absolutely everything, and not just by Hyundai standards. Keep in mind, compared to its competitors, I don't think there are many features you can find which would be missing on these IONIQ 5s or Kia EV6s. So in terms of value for money, especially if you are into the gadgets in your vehicle, this is about as good and as easy as it gets. Of course, as I mentioned, there's the higher price to pay with the Namsan, but once you factor in the cost of the technology package and the heat pump, if you want to similarly spec an Ultimate, the difference is really, really small. And as I said, there's a very limited number of those fully spec'd out Ultimates on the used market. Secondly, if you are buying used, depreciation works its thing, and even if we are predicting the same relative depreciation in terms of percentage, obviously because we are working with a higher number from the get-go with the Namsan, in 2 to 3 years' time, the difference really starts to shrink. So in our eyes, it's really, really good value for money if you want to have all the options on board. And yeah, I think that's where I'm going to leave it. Thank you very much for watching. If you found the video helpful, make sure to hit the like button. This particular example is about to go on sale soon, so make sure to get in touch with us in case you are interested. As you can see behind me, we've got lots of other EVs like this BMW i3s, so make sure to check out our i3 playlist if you want to learn more about what we do with those. And if you want to see more EV content, make sure to subscribe. Thank you again, and see you in the next one.